Hey everyone, so today we're going to be talking about some American wedding traditions. A little overview about our presentation today. First, we're going to begin with discussing a few key terms. Next, we'll talk about some common American wedding traditions. Then we'll go more specifically based on regions throughout the US. So first we'll talk about the East Coast and Midwest. Then we'll go and discuss some traditions in the West Coast and then in the South. Then Katie's going to talk about some of the interviews that we conducted for our presentation. And next, we'll connect all the American wedding traditions to the different sociological theories. So first, a few key terms to keep in mind throughout this presentation. First, tradition means the transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation. White wedding is a narrative about a couple consisting of one female bride and one male groom who embody the ideals of their own gender roles. The way they think, the way they are represented in mainstream wedding media promotes the hegemonic ideals of the gender or sexuality hierarchy. Then heteronormativity is it creates a hierarchy of gender and sexuality. It dictates not only that heterosexuality is normal and desirable, but that heterosexuality is most or only acceptable when enacted as a monogamous partnership between a man and a woman, each performing traditional gender roles. And then finally, our last key term is material culture, which is the totality of physical objects made by people for the satisfaction of their needs, especially those articles requisite for the sustenance and perpetuation of life. So first, I'm going to talk about some common American wedding traditions that I'm sure you guys are familiar with already. First, getting engaged. The diamond ring is the first symbol of engagement and one that young girls often dream about from when they were children. And the proposal, where a man gives typically a woman a diamond engagement ring, began in the late 19th century when the Industrial Revolution brought changes to the jewelry industry, where companies began mass producing products to consumers. It is considered to be a token of love and commitment for the fiance. And moving towards the 20th century, advertisers began focus on selling diamond engagement ring to couples, aka the diamond engagement ring were only for women. And I'm sure you guys have heard of De Beers diamonds, and they created the slogan that a diamond is forever, which heavily emphasized tradition towards consumers. And then wedding adjacency events is another big topic. This includes like bridal showers, bachelor and bachelorette parties, and day after brunches. And these usually happen outside of the wedding day. They are typically leading up to the wedding or it's immediately after. And this includes, again, the bridal showers, bachelor parties, and day after brunch. So first, bridal showers, they're usually woman-only events where the bride-to-be is presented with gifts that'll help her fit the traditional role of being a wife. This event helps socializes the bride to the hyper-feminized traditional wife role, which includes gifts that'll help her cook, clean, and decorate the home. A bridal shower's explicit purpose is gift giving and to help her be a better wife. Bridal shower guests surveyed on the Knot.com's Real Wedding Survey spent an average of $75 on a bridal shower gift in 2016. And bridal showers are customary for all economic classes today. It is an opportunity for the bride-to-be and the groom to receive gifts they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. So bridal parties may have their own origins. This may have started in like the 19th century with sewing parties, where female neighbors would come together to help the bride-to-be sew items like sheets and towels that would be used during the marriage. Also, a woman's worth was tied heavily to what she could offer a man in heteronormative marriage, and these parties brought women together to help one another in that area. So next, the fun bachelor and bachelorette parties. These aren't explicitly for gift giving, but are considered consumer events where guests pay for travel, accommodations, food and drinks, and wedding activities. These are more recently adopted pre-wedding events that signify heteronormative roles. Bachelor parties have been around for centuries where men mourn their last days of singlehood and sexual freedom. This was unnecessary for women as marriage is traditionally the beginning of a bride's sexual life and the fulfillment of her primary purpose in life, to become a wife and begin having children. Though bachelorette parties began in the late 20th century when a bride's female friends, typically the bridesmaids, throw a private shower giving gifts like lingerie, drinks, and they go to strip clubs and they usually openly talk about sex. This means that the quote unquote virgin bride is not an expectation anymore. So next, the white wedding gown is another really big American wedding tradition. Brides didn't consistently begin wearing white wedding gowns until the 20th century. And before then, they chose a color gown that they liked or could afford. Additionally, wedding gowns were often worn again. Black was actually a very popular color for wedding gowns because it hid stains well and could be reworn at funerals. White gowns were only really available to wealthy brides in history because it was expensive and difficult to produce and maintain. This began to motivate brides to wear white on their wedding day, and toward the end of the 19th century, brides could order ready-to-wear gowns instead of having to purchase a pattern and fabric that have the gown professionally sewn. Since the 20th century, the white wedding gown represents purity and virginity. According to One Perfect Day, page 76, the white wedding gown is the paramount icon of the American wedding, the pristine, untouched costume in which a bride makes her breathtaking appearance before her husband to meet, as utterly transformed from her day-to-day self as is a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. This is a great analogy that speaks to how the white wedding gown transforms the bride into almost like a magical fairy tale. So this video shares more of the history of the white wedding gown. Okay, so next, wedding photographers are now an essential element of the white wedding. Over time, couples have always wanted their wedding day documented, but prior to newer technology, it required large equipment and time for the photos to be developed. Until the 1920s, couples had to settle for a dozen or so photographs taken during a session at a photographer's studio. And now photographers began to advertise their services as an essential way to immortalize the happy day. By the 1920s, photographers frequently took their cameras on location for ceremonies and receptions, and photographers are almost always seen at weddings nowadays. Today, wedding photographers allow couples to relive their magical wedding day. Next, another big tradition is bridesmaids, and although there's no traceable origin story for the tradition of bridesmaids, since the Middle Ages, required at least 2 witnesses to see a wedding ceremony, and a sense of safety and superstition was also dictated that similarly dressed bridesmaids to the bride may confuse dangerous spirits or jealous rivals wishing to harm or steal a bride away. Additionally, a bride can benefit from the support of her friends in the transition from single to married life. In my research, Victorian custom for bridesmaids was to dress in white, as became the practice for brides. And at the time, the norm was for bridesmaids to be unmarried and younger than the bride. Over time, trends changed and bridesmaids' outfits became more colorful, and wealthier brides began to dress their bridesmaids in fancy gowns. Large numbers of bridesmaids became fashionable, from a modest 2 or 3 bridesmaids to as many as 8 or more. As well, and in the interest of symmetry, the numbers of groomsmen increased as well. And then finally, the wedding cake. The wedding cake is another integral element of the white wedding and is common in wedding culture. Wedding cakes are considered a centuries-old custom, though they have changed in form and purpose over time. There are a few origins to where wedding cake began. In European culture, Simon Charlesley, author of Wedding Cakes and Cultural History, explained that the term cake has changed in meaning over time. The Oxford English Dictionary traces it as far back as 1230. Cake originally referring to a small, hard type of bread. At wedding celebrations, a groom could often break a bride cake above the bride's head, and then the term bride cake was used until the 19th century, when the term wedding cake replaced it as the common term. Cakes included candied fruits called plum cakes, were common at medieval feasts. These celebratory decorative cakes may bear the closest resemblance to modern wedding cakes. So the first discussion for you guys to think about is, how do common American wedding traditions relate or differ from the term white wedding? So next I'm going to talk about East Coast and Midwest American wedding traditions. So first I'm going to talk about the East Coast wedding traditions, next the Midwest, and then I'm going to share some common Midwestern wedding rules. And then finally, I'm going to compare the East Coast and Midwest wedding reception schedules. So first, for East Coast traditions, in my research, I found that it is traditional in the East Coast to have a nautical theme wedding on the beach, especially in states like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Vermont. These states are some of the most popular vacation spots in the summertime because of their extensive infrastructure, high populations, and beautiful beaches. It is also tradition to have the ceremony in a rustic and beautiful location like a beach cottage or winery. For example, in Maine, one of the most popular trends is getting married at a lighthouse because of its mystique and allure. Additionally, it is common tradition in the East Coast to offer seafood at weddings that go along with the beach wedding theme. Specifically in Massachusetts, many couples dream of a New England vibe wedding, which is described by Amy McLaughlin, owner of Amy McLaughlin Lifestyles, as, when people come to Massachusetts to attend a wedding, they are hoping to experience traditional New England. This means clam bakes, lobster, seersucker suits with vineyard vine ties, Boston baked beans, and the Red Sox. Another popular tradition in New York and New Jersey, where there are high concentrations of Italian people, is having a Viennese hour at the wedding. This occurs after the dinner and after the wedding cake has been cut. It includes a massive assortment of desserts that guests help themselves to, like pies, cookies, brownies, cheesecake, pastries, chocolate-covered fruit, ice cream, candy, coffee, and other sweets. Sometimes other fancier desserts like bananas, Foster, or custom sundae bars are available too, depending on how extravagant the wedding is. Some couples choose to forego the wedding cake completely and just have a Viennese hour, and it's obviously acceptable to have both. So now moving on to a few Midwestern traditions. In the Midwest, Camille McLam, founder and lead planner at Camille Victoria Weddings in Chicago, shared that couples love showcasing their local food favorites. This, for Chicago, included the classic Chicago-style hot dogs and the famed Garrett's popcorn. And I wanted to share that because I'm from Chicago, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Also in Indiana, many couples like to focus on products or services that are from Indiana, so they'll incorporate corn into their meals. Couples oftentimes use local products for their favors since many of their clients come from out of state. Oftentimes their hotel welcome bags are full of local products as well, like local popcorn, chocolate, and beer. Also in Wisconsin, couples like to incorporate candy from the local Baraboo Candy Company, such as the famous Wisconsin cow pie or cow tails. Through research, it is evident that couples in Illinois and Indiana are proud to be where they're from. Couples in Illinois like taking wedding photos around the city at different historical locations like the Bean or other landmarks. And Emily McMahon, certified wedding planner and owner of Soiree Wedding Planning, says, for many of our couples, they either have family from here or they met going to college. We notice that so many of our couples come back from other parts of the country for their wedding celebration, as opposed to having the wedding where they live now. And that was for people who have weddings in Iowa or from Iowa. And then also another wedding coordinator said they want to show their guests the best of the state. It makes weddings personal and fun for their guests who may never have been here before. Another thing for Illinois, specifically couples like using personalized details that reflect their personality and interests. They often incorporate past family wedding photos, tables named after places the couple have traveled to, and signs showcasing a clever custom hashtag for posting pictures onto social media. Lastly, derived from the Quaker tradition in the 16th century, couples in the Midwest and South would have pounding parties, which is similar to a housewarming party, except the soon-to-be weds or newlyweds are given flour, sugar, butter, and other pantry stocking goods by the pound. Other items can be given to like cleaning supplies and handmade items for their home, and this helps the couples to fill their pantry. Nowadays, it's sometimes used to welcome church ministers by helping donate pounds of food to charities. So my next discussion question for you guys to think about is, why is it important that both East Coast and Midwest weddings want to incorporate local foods into their special day? So next I'm going to share some common Midwestern wedding rules that I found to be really interesting. First, the bride's parents pay for the wedding. An old school rule stated that the bride's family paid for the wedding and reception, while the groom's family paid for the rehearsal dinner. Modern wedding etiquette is more flexible, but it's often based on traditional rules. The second one is your mom can't throw your shower. And years ago, it was considered rude for the mother to host a party where the sole purpose was for her daughter to receive gifts. And this tradition has faded in modern years. The third is the guests of the groom sit on one side of the church while the brides are on the other. This is an old school tradition that Pinterest has effectively eliminated with the trendy chalkboard signage placed by the seating for the ceremony. The fourth is the number of bridesmaids should equal the number of groomsmen, which we kind of talked about. That was common earlier. The members of the bridal party should be the people who are the closest, should be the people that the bride is the closest to or the groom is the closest to. And nowadays it doesn't really matter if it's uneven, but couples definitely like more symmetry, especially for pictures. Number 5 is the wedding has to be on a Saturday afternoon with the reception in the evening. Weddings used to take place in the early afternoon on a Saturday, followed by photographers and photographs taken for the family and wedding party. And then guests pass the time by waiting around town before heading to the reception, dance, and dinner. Then number 6, you must have wedding favors. Nowadays, brides may not want to waste money on expensive favors and will get a photo booth, or the couple will donate to a charity of choice. Number 7, you cannot see the bride or groom before walking down the aisle because it's considered bad luck. And now it's trendy for couples to have a special first look moment before the wedding ceremony. Also, another benefit of seeing your bride or groom before walking down the aisle is that nearly all of the photos can be complete before the ceremony occurs. And then the final rule is the bride must wear a veil. And while this may be an important tradition in some religions, it is not a requirement for wedding day ensemble today. So my last discussion question for you guys to think about is, how does the Midwestern wedding rules relate to a bride's perfect day? Do you think the couple would be judged if they didn't follow all the rules? So next, I'm going to just briefly talk about the difference between East Coast and Midwest wedding receptions, because I found it interesting that they were a little bit different. So the East Coast receptions put formal dances before dinner. The couple starts dancing immediately after the grand entrance when all eyes are already focused on the couple, and guests will also get to dance between courses. Dancing between courses really brings a different energy to the party. And then for Midwest, their approach to save all the dancing until after dinner. The most high energy music won't start until after everyone has eaten, and then later, like recorded music will be playing while dinner. This makes the Midwest receptions the most straightforward for most of the vendors. The downside is that there can be a lull after dinner when some guests are finished eating, but others are just starting, and the dance floor can't open until the formal dances are completed. But couples will probably want to visit tables before the first dance.
So next, I'm going to start by speaking about the West Coast wedding traditions and how they vary across the United States. And so beginning with the overview of my section of the presentation, I am going to begin by talking about the guests and the bride and groom attire for the wedding, as well as the common wedding traditions of the West Coast, the wedding day itself and the decor, and a discussion question. And so the first photo included really exemplifies the West Coast weddings and how they're really outdoors, more laid back. You'll notice the bride is in more sandal type heels, and it's really outdoors and on the beach and in tune with the location. And so just keep note of that as we move through this section. And so next, we are going to talk about the West Coast attire. And so for women attending the wedding, basically beach wedding dress code 101 is you can gauge the expected level of formality by looking at the invitation to the wedding. And attire tips are usually included somewhere in the invite, including whether it's formal, semi-formal, or casual. And so for women, they really look to wear light fabrics, tropical or beach tones, long dresses or sandals or short heels, as we saw in the previous photo. Light fabrics that don't cling to the body are probably the best, especially at a beach wedding that can often be humid. They really recommend materials like linen, chiffon, or even cotton blends. And if the ceremony or reception is taking place during the evening, they recommend to bring a lightweight shawl in case some cool air moves in. You can mimic those delicious tones that really occur out in the West Coast and out on the beach with colors like blue, turquoise, aquamarine, tangerine, and even sunflower tones that are appropriate for a beach wedding. And then as we start to look at the men and the proper attire for them, they said you should really consider wearing linen or cotton. Whether you wear slacks and a button down shirt or suit depends on the dress code, which we'll get into later. And as we spoke about, that's really on the invitation. Any color linen paired with white or beige slacks is really acceptable and it'll look great and keep the guests cool. A tan, gray, blue, or cream colored linen suit with a white shirt is also appropriate beach attire for men. And going as far as shoes, like shoes that can easily slip on and off for the ladies, as I said, sandals are a great option as long as they're on the nicer, dressier side. And then as we move into the bridal, what the bride herself is actually wearing, a lot of the times we're seeing white, which is so common, but also colorful dresses or more like off-white dresses. The boho trends have really continued into the 2020s, and it's easy to see why with the looks soft and romantic appeal. Some brides may assume that a bohemian dress means a casual vibe, but they can come in a variety of styles, and some can be more formal or casual. It really depends. And they include embellishments such as ruffles, fringing, pearls, lace, and sleeves that are loose and breezy are another signature to this aesthetic. And a lot of sheer lace is really signature to this as well. And it's great to pair this with sustainability as well, which we'll speak about. But so using a vintage dress or dresses that have been already worn and almost repurposing them. And so they really emphasize then for the groom, the current trends feature blues, pale grays, and beige suits, which is the perfect color palette for any seaside event. Those are also the colors that look best when in nature, and they tend to look a little bit less formal than as you would see in, say, a church wedding. And again, with the lightweight suits that will keep them comfortable, especially in the outdoors and against the elements. Um, they can even sometimes suggest undoing a few shirt buttons and maybe losing a tie or a jacket or simply being able to wear more casual fabrics. And in the next slide, I've really included some examples of this. And so this is shown in these photos right here. So you can see how the groom has a more blue tux and the light gray in the photo all the way to the right. Or the in the middle photo, he has the navy suit and they're walking down the beach. It's much more laid back. You even see in the first photo, she has the flower crown. She's really in touch with the nature and really an emphasis on the location and incorporating that in. You can see a lot of lace and really flowy materials, as well as a lot of florals that are incorporated and really match the scene of where they are located. And so that next brings us to traditions in these weddings. And we're going to first talk about the Go Green movement. And the West Coast region is really full of beautiful areas, including the lush forests and the deserts of California and the beaches. And this excess of scenic nature is why many Westerners prefer to go green actually for their weddings. So the Go Green movement has gained some serious momentum over the last decades, and this is especially true in the West Coast. Brides and grooms all over the West Coast are taking up this tradition with recycled dinnerware and low electricity venues that really allow them to not really leave a giant footprint just on their one big day. And along with this going green, Westerners also like the planting tree ceremony. And this is a newer practice that they have been using, and it involves planting a tree. And they kind of look at it as what better way to celebrate your love than to forever capture it in something as lasting as a tree in the soil. And so couples are able to choose an appropriate plant and place the tree during the ceremony into a pre-dug hole. They fill it in with soil or sand, and that's it. And it kind of is locking in their love and something to bloom into the future, which is, I think, is a really cool thing to incorporate. And another Western tradition is the sand ceremony, and I have included a video which we'll look at. But so the couple is able to hold two different colors of sand in bottles, and they pour them together in a new container. And this naturally the sand mixes, and this creates a swirl of color representing the joining of the two lives. And this beautiful metaphor is then plugged and as the bottle is plugged and given to the couple to keep in memory of their special day. And this ceremony is normally performed by the pastor or the priest, and he instructs the couple of how to really bring together their colors of sand and signify. So I'm going to play this video really quick to show that.
Chris Robinson is the officiant guy, a wedding officiant.
And so that really just shows the ceremony and how the couple can take a moment to really blend themselves together in the form of the sand, which I think is a really cool thing to incorporate. And then on the next slide, we really talk about the wedding day itself and the decor that's incorporated. And so, as you probably noticed, and as I've said, the West Coast is a lot more relaxed and willing to challenge wedding traditions. And so, you'll be a lot more likely to find wedding dresses that are in bold colors rather than just plain white in the West Coast. The West Coast typically has better weather for these weddings. So you're much more likely to have an outdoor wedding because you have the better weather, the better locations, the beach, the cliffs, golf courses, the desert, really kind of a really big choice. And it also lends itself to a lot of flower growth and a lot of flowers being incorporated into the wedding. And they both still do have a lot of the same decor, just styled differently. For example, like flower wall rentals are really popular regardless of where you are in the United States. However, East Coast cities like New York, they really prefer rentals that are in more neutral and classic colors like white. Whereas on the other hand, in places on the West Coast, such as Los Angeles, flower wall rentals for weddings will be more picture colors and purple and pink and really bright colors that stand out at the wedding. And there are many similarities in the East and West Coast wedding decor and traditions, but the East Coast really prefers sticking to a tradition while the West Coast puts a creative spin on traditional wedding decor. So they push the boundaries creatively and really try to think out of the box and how can the couple be represented more in the wedding. I think they really kind of see how they can spin it to make it more personalized. And so it really just makes it much more of a laid back day with lounge seating that lends itself to more conversational aspects at the wedding. The brides on the West Coast often opt for a more casual setting, and especially at the reception, then they can dress the lounge seating up or down really to fit what they're going for at their wedding. And so it just really makes for a much brighter, more laid back day for everyone that's involved. And then next, move on to the next slide, which is my discussion question. And so I just asked, how would the location of your wedding influence the traditions that you incorporate into it? And so for the next part of our presentation, Katie will discuss weddings and their traditions in the Southern United States, as well as applying it to the sociological theories.
Okay, next I'm going to be talking about Southern wedding traditions. So to start with an overview, I'm going to discuss pre-wedding traditions, wedding day attire, wedding day decor, wedding day details, and wedding etiquette, and how they specify that in the South. For wedding etiquette, that's just going to be like the who pays for what part of that. So leading up to the wedding, there are a couple of traditions that are unique to the South. First, we have burying the bourbon. I've lived in Texas my whole life and I've never heard of this tradition. I've been to several weddings in the South too, and I've never seen this done, but it was definitely something to note in the research that I did. So essentially the tradition consists of a bottle of Kentucky bourbon that is buried about a month before the wedding. And this is like a superstition that is said to prevent rain on the wedding day and bring good fortune to the couple. The bottle is buried upside down at either the wedding site or the site of the new home. And if it's at the site of the wedding, then they dig it up on the day of the wedding and drink it. It's also said to bring, I already said that. Never mind. So next was the bridal luncheon. So this was also something I found unique to the South. Most American brides do have some sort of wedding shower, bridal shower, couple shower of that sort to celebrate the couple as a whole. But this is kind of similar to that, but it's meant to thank the bridesmaids for their help with the wedding. It's typically held during the day with a tea party or lunch, and it can be hosted by the bride, the mother of the bride, or the maid of honor. And although it does look similar to a bridal shower, it's different because it's just meant to thank the brides rather than to celebrate the bride herself. So moving on to wedding day attire. Wedding day attire in the South isn't incredibly different from the rest of the US, but there are a few differences. First, the brides tend to wear more ball gown dresses. This is a clip from Something Borrowed, Something New. It's a TV show on TLC, so I'm going to show that really quick.
Mom had a lot of opinions.
making sure everybody can see this. Let's see. Okay.
Jessica, please come out and show us the something borrowed. Oh my God.
Oh my word.
Oh my dog. It's gorgeous. Oh wow. Oh my God.
Wow, it's right.
Mom's extra added bling has been banished, and her dress has become a flower-embellished ball gown with applique bodice.
That can't be Dom's dress. She looks so much like you did.
It looks really good.
You look
wonderful. Really good.
Wow, the flowers are seriously so beautiful.
I think the way those flowers graduate, it's very fashion forward.
I feel like a Southern belle in this.
This is the first dress that I've ever performed a blingectomy on. But underneath all of those tacky sparkles, I had a ton of great lace to work with. I wanted to simplify the dress by making the top just really pretty and elegant. This entire bodice is covered with Mom's appliques. I recreated the bodice to be a sweetheart neckline, and I love that balance of the nice, delicate top with the big ballroom skirt. I think it complements your figure. And because the satin was so shiny and all wrong for what Jessica wanted, we just did the overlay of this beautiful fabric with the laser cut flowers. Now, originally, we had talked about just doing sparse flowers, but once I got into it,
Oh, no,
I wanted to just build up the dress, you know, gradiate from thick to sparse. I added a few pearl details here, and I was able to create your perfect Southern Belle wedding dress for only $1,025. Wow.
Okay, yeah,
Wow.
it's stunning. I love the buttons and the bow. I think it looks so good.
I can sit back and relax now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that is that video. Let me go back to this. Okay, so like I said, bridal wear doesn't differ too much. It's more so just an emphasis on the ball gowns. These pictures to the right are from my cousin's wedding about a year ago. She's so pretty. She didn't have a ball gown, but I did interview her, and she said that they went for a kind of a mix between Southern and modern theme. So she went with definitely a more modern wedding dress. And then this is my little cousin. This is her daughter that she's almost 2 now, but she was super cute. So seersuckers were the other thing to kind of note in the South. They're probably the most noticeable difference. The bottom right picture on this slide, that is a seersucker. So they are what many railroad workers wore in the late 19th century. In the 1920s, it became vogue and was popular for the East Coast preppies. I've never personally seen a groom wear seersuckers, but it was, again, just a part of the research that I did. They might be a little bit more popular outside of Texas too. I haven't really been to weddings outside of Texas, at least in the South. So I will say groom attire that is more like Southern themed or country themed is a little bit different, and it is more of what I see in Texas. This is going to include like the denim bottoms, wearing jeans instead of a suit, kind of like my cousin's spouse here in this top right picture. He wore jeans and boots. They also tend to wear like a cowboy hat. They still wear like some sort of sports coat or suit coat, but you see a lot more denim at these weddings. Let's see. So I will also say if the wedding is in like downtown Dallas or in a like bigger city, it's obviously going to be a lot more similar to what you're going to see everywhere else in the US. It's not going to be as Southern and country that you would imagine. And then the other thing to note was the something borrowed and something blue, which is a really big thing in the South. And I'm going to talk about that later with my cousin when I interviewed her. These tend to be fairly family heirlooms. This isn't like a tradition that is exclusive to the South, but it is definitely important to a lot of people in the South. This can be jewelry, a veil, and sometimes it's even the wedding dress. So I'm going to show you another clip from Something Borrowed and Something New.
My name is Darcy. This is my mom, Joanna, and this is my dad.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh.
I'm just in complete shock that that I'm even having the reaction that I'm having, and that this.
I mean, the transformation of this dress is like no other.
Unbelievable.
Yes, unbelievable.
The stained and well-worn family dress has become a modern, romantic lace gown with an airy organza skirt, perfect for Ansley's beach wedding.
Can I do a twirl?
Absolutely.
Oh my
Like a
gosh.
princess.
She looks like she has stepped off the pages of a storybook.
The detail in the lace is impeccable, and it's got a little bit of sparkle so that I kind of shimmer. The back is
Oh my
amazing, and check
gosh.
out the buttons still.
Those hand covered.
Okay. This was for a Florida wedding, so that's why she said beach. But yes, so that was, like I said, the Something Borrowed is typically super important to Southern brides, but again, it's just, it's really important to brides in other parts of the US too. There we go. Okay, on to more wedding day decor and details. Wedding food in the South is definitely my kind of food. The Knot, when I did my research, they recommended fried chicken and biscuit sliders, a chicken and waffle station, a barbecue sauce station, pulled pork sliders, and jarred pies, and that just sounds phenomenal to me. Other websites said shrimp and grits, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, green beans, all the good foods. And then the cocktails, many of the cocktails include lemonade and iced tea, and all of it is in mason jars. You will find mason jars everywhere in a Southern wedding. When I typed in Southern wedding decor on Google, all I saw was mason jars everywhere. Outdoor ceremonies are super popular in the South. You're likely going to see a lot of wood, baby's breath, backyard ceremonies and receptions, barn weddings, and again, all the mason jars. Florals, wedding florals in the South, from what I read, vary by season. In the spring, you'll see apple, cherry, dogwood, forsythia, orange, magnolia leaves, quincy blossoms. In the summer, there's PG, oak leaf hydrangeas, lemons, limes, and succulents. In the fall, you have cotton balls, berry branches, curly willow, fig branches, gourds, and pumpkins. And in the winter, there's berry branches, cranberries, evergreen garland, pine cones, pomegranates, and snowberries. So it varies by season, but those are some of the popular florals that I found for the South. Another cool wedding tradition that I found was the cake pool. This was something that I learned about through research because I haven't seen this at a wedding, and if I have, I just didn't pay much attention to it. But that's the picture on the bottom right here. It's kind of like a charm cake. There's ribbons hanging on either side of the cake, and it's pulled by the wedding guests before the cake is cut. The pulls are usually reserved for unmarried bridesmaids, though. The ribbons may be all the same color to keep the charm a prize for the pullers, or each charm could have a different meaning, like an anchor for adventure, a wishbone for success, a heart for new love, or a ring for the next one to be married. The ribbons may have a designated color picked by the bride to assure that specific guest gets the charm with the specific meaning behind it. So I thought that was really cool. I had never heard of that before, though. The next thing that is super popular in the South is a groom's cake. So this yeti right here, that is actually a cake. This tradition comes from the Victorian era. which consisted of having 3 cakes at a wedding, one for the guest, the bride cake, and the groom cake. So fun fact about this, groomsmen used to be responsible for making the groomsmen cake the morning of the wedding. Can you imagine the chaos? An old superstition about this cake is that if an unmarried woman sleeps with a slice of groom's cake under her pillow, she will dream of her future husband. So that is interesting. And then the last wedding tradition I have listed is the rollicking second line. This is a tradition unique to New Orleans. It's a parade led by a brass band, and it includes the bride, the groom, and the wedding party. And this occurs after the ceremony. I have a video of that, and I will play that really quick. So I thought that was super cool. Let's see what's next. Alrighty, on to the wedding etiquette. So I focused this more on the spending, who's responsible for which costs when it comes to the wedding. In an article I found, they kind of divided it up. This isn't a strict tradition by any means, but this was just a general outline that I found when researching. So the bride and her family are typically responsible for venues, the venue price, weddings, the bride's wedding gown and accessories, invitations and other stationery, the wedding planner, flowers, catering and bar, photographer, videographer, musicians, transportation of the bridal party, wedding favors, wedding cake and groom's cake, groom's wedding bands, bride's gifts to the groom, bride's gift to her attendants, and the gift for parents. So seems like a lot. It is a lot. I mean, weddings are expensive. We all know this. And so that is what the bride and her family are typically responsible for. The groom and his family are typically responsible for the bride's engagement and wedding ring, the groom's attire for the wedding, all costs of the rehearsal dinner, officiant's fee or donation, lodging and travel expenses for the officiant if they're from another town, marriage license, the bride's bouquet, groomsmen and ushers' boutonnieres, the musicians, mothers and grandmothers' corsage or nosegay. This is just like a small, a nosegay is just like a really, really small bouquet, kind of similar to what the bride carries, but just on a much smaller scale. A getaway vehicle for the day of the wedding, the wedding night accommodations, the groom's gift to the bride, bride's gift to the groom, groom's gift to his attendants, and expenses of the honeymoon. So something to kind of think about. Do you think a bridal luncheon is a necessary pre-wedding activity? Is there something different you would do to thank your wedding party? In my opinion, I think it's a great way to thank the wedding party. They do a lot for the wedding and they dedicate a lot of time to you as the bride or groom. And I think it's just a really sweet way to say thank you. So now I want to go into the sociological theories. We all had to read the I Do article in class for the last exam, but I'm going to elaborate that on a little bit. So the wedding industry is huge in the US, and the conflict theory shows how that has affected decisions made by couples. Wedding day activities and decor are becoming more and more detailed and expensive. And as Dr. Thompson has discussed in lecture, the prices of weddings have grown substantially. Have you guys heard the saying, like, I want to wait until I'm financially stable to get married? Like, I can't get married until I can fully support myself and take care of all of the wedding costs. I've heard that a lot. I don't know about you guys, but I hear that all the time, especially like people my age who have been dating for a really long time but are waiting to get engaged because they just don't feel financially ready to do that. So I felt that this theory explains that conflict a lot. So the desire to have more unique aspects at a wedding day has allowed for the creation of more jobs and businesses, of course, but it has resulted in the delay of marriage for many couples because they may not be able to afford the extravagance when they're younger. The functionalist theory explains how parts work together for the whole. A unique niche is created out of popularity, and businesses start because of that niche. So like the floral walls or like the greenery walls is a huge thing. And so like rental companies started out of that, or rental companies started carrying those things and they were able to profit more from that. But if that niche goes out of style, or say like the wooden signs, like people may have a really good gift for doing calligraphy. I love doing calligraphy, so I've done several things like that. But if that niche goes out of style, then that business goes out of business and those jobs are lost. So that kind of shows that the interconnectedness of all of that, because if those products and that style is no longer trending, it kind of creates this chain reaction of things that go wrong for businesses and people in general. And then the last theory I want to discuss is the symbolic interactionist theory. This theory, in my opinion, is the most prevalent when it comes to American wedding traditions. Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and more recently TikTok has become some of the biggest influences for brides when they're planning their weddings. Brides have started posting all of the details leading up to their wedding day on TikTok. And with this, other brides on TikTok notice those details and realize they may want to incorporate those in their own wedding. There are details that you may not have ever even thought of otherwise. And I personally have been heavily influenced by wedding TikTok, and I am in no hurry to get married anytime soon, but it's definitely influenced me. So I'm sure all of us can agree that symbolic interactionist is a very, very large and preeminent or prevalent role in our society right now. So moving on, for our interviews, I spoke with two different people, Kim and David Wedding Photography. She is a local DFW wedding photographer. I spoke with Kim through Instagram and just reached out to her, and she sent her about 10 questions. And these were two of the ones that I thought stuck out the most. So I asked her, what is the most unique tradition you have seen so far? And she said, to be honest, I feel that as a Hispanic shooting both American and Hispanic weddings, I haven't come across what I would say out of the ordinary. Not to make things seem dull, but most weddings do follow a similar pattern. One thing for sure that has been fun to watch and capture from Mexican weddings has particularly been La Vibora. The bride and groom climb a chair opposite from each other that is about 2 feet away in length while they hold each other's hands right high in the air, making a bridge. All men in attendance hold hands and run in between the narrow opening of the chair that the bride and groom are on. Then after the man's turn is over, the women in attendance will also hold hands and run through the same narrow opening. It's incredibly entertaining. I have never seen that happen before, but I've also never been to a Mexican wedding, so I guess that makes sense. And then I also asked her, what style of weddings do you prefer, country, modern, etc. And And then I said, do you cater to each client depending on what they're looking for? And she said that her work tends to entice the dreamy, bohemian, open-minded couples that are ready to enjoy an amazing time with me while I capture the truthful, raw feelings that they have for each other. But I welcome everyone who loves my style of editing and shooting style. So she's not super, strict with the type of wedding that she will work, but she does try to find brides that already like her style of photography. And so the last person that I interviewed was my cousin. Like I said, her pictures were a couple slides back. These weddings to the left are all from Kim and Weddings David Photography. They're so pretty. But my cousin, I asked her, did you have a something borrowed, something new, and something blue? And she said she borrowed her Gammy's wedding ring to wear on her right hand, and her spouse got her a new bracelet the day of their wedding for their something new. So she didn't take the wedding ring to keep forever, but it was just, again, the something borrowed. It wasn't something that you get to keep forever. And then I asked her what was one detail that was super important and that you absolutely had to include in your wedding. And she said, no first look with Dalton, but a first look, Dalton is her spouse, but a first look with her dad and brothers. I wanted Dalton's first time seeing me in over 24 hours to be when I walked down the aisle. And this is, I think, a really, really sweet detail, and something that I've always wanted to include in my wedding as well. I don't want to have a traditional first look, or I don't want to have the first look that's become more popular before walking down the aisle. I just think it's really special to have that initial reaction. And I think it's really sweet, but I definitely want to do it with my dad and maybe my brothers too. And then this was Kimberly's contact information. She linked her Instagram, her photography email, and then her website as well.